Now, Vinny Perth is with us. Vinny, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning. How are we all doing?
You were comparing your snooker record there with young Shane.
Yeah, I had a misspent youth in snooker clubs. There was a time where there was loads of them in Dublin now. You really struggle to find a snooker club unless you're an anorak. So actually we played an FAI Cup final in 2018, and Pat Hubin plays league snooker and that in Dundalk. So
that's a high level.
Yeah, so it'd be really good. But I played him the morning of the final we were staying in the Radisson, so that's Ken Doherty's practice room. Amazing room.
St Helens, yeah.
Memorabilia and all that stuff. Just an amazing room. A lot of Manchester United stuff. But I remember myself and Pat played one frame and I beat him, and to say Stephen Kenny gave out to me when he found out, it was hilarious, and everyone was, in the background chuckling away, and he was like proper giving out to me. What the did you do, Dave? A cup final, you should have let him beat, So it was good fun.
Put the hex on Hoban, yeah.
Yeah,
how did we play?
We still won the final, so forget how Pat played. That's not important.
It's irrelevant, yeah.
And if Pat losing doesn't come kindly to him,
All right, so you ruined his day.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Just one frame, but you'll take it.
It was just one frame. It wasn't a grey frame either, and the championship pockets are so tight, so it was really difficult.
Different size, of course.
Different. Absolutely.
So, what's your record break?
I broke 50 a couple of times, so 67. I wouldn't be shy about telling people, but
right.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, but I gave it up. I honestly, I think my wife, the butt of the queue, threw out the butt of the queue once, just threw it out and never ever really played again.
Is there more to that story that you want to tell us?
No, it's not a Tiger Woods moment, anything like it. So and once that went, I just couldn't play. Picked up different cues and couldn't.
This happened to Stephen Hendry, literally it was the end of his career. It's mad.
So now my challenge is breaking 90 in golf. That's me new thing now. So obviously as you get older, your priorities change. But breaking 90 in golf is now.
Right.
Yeah, now my challenge.
Are you close?
Yeah, about 93, 94. Recently, Damien Delaney would probably tell you I'm over 100, but no, I'm close to 93. Damien Delaney is just ridiculous at golf, by the way.
Is he? Yeah,
ridiculous.
Down to 3 or 4, is he?
He's one of them. When you play with someone who's too good, it actually takes the enjoyment out of it.
Yeah,
he's down. I think he's playing off 1.
Is he already? Okay.
I'm going to play off these white tees back here, lads. I'll see you in a minute type of stuff.
Yeah. Just rubbing it in.
Yeah,
it's annoying.
Shane, you've been curiously silent on your record break.
No, I'm not a great snooker player at all. I love playing it. Watch it. I'd say my highest break is maybe early 30s. I'm not a consistent player whatsoever. I do have my own cue, so I walk in with this case, take it out, assemble the cue together, and then proceed to play crap. Yeah. So I'm all talk, I'm all show. But sure, listen, I'll get there someday. Someday I'll break 50, Vinny.
You were watching Liverpool last night before we talked to.
I obviously watched both games, and sadly I watched Liverpool after the Arsenal City game. But Liverpool fans will, and I know you have a lot of them listening, they were exceptional last night. I know they've had a couple of different moments, obviously go back to Charity Shield or against Arsenal, but he started Diego Jota, who's been brilliant over the last few weeks, but it looked like it was his third game, sort of come back from injury, took him off. He brings on Luis Diaz, and he was exceptional as well when he came on.
Right.
Thiago came on, Nunes came on, and you're all of a sudden you're like, this is sort of
what you expected.
But it's also the rebuilding has begun. You can see in this Liverpool side there's obviously still a couple of things defensively. Jean Matip was very good at centre half, and we obviously seen Trent playing in midfield. We've seen a little bit of that, but I was chatting to someone big Liverpool fan, and he was like, well, they still gave away chances. They've always given away chances. They've the fullbacks are always a little bit too far forward for most people, but they're so dominant as an attacking force. Gakpo has got a good goal from outside the box, but he's starting to find a bit of form, and I'd say there's real hope for this Liverpool team when you strip back all of the noise and that comes around and the pylon that jumps on, and when you look at their run in, it's a long shot because Newcastle and United have stole the march, but they've got a lot of winnable games. I think that's 5 on the bounce or
right,
something like that. So
because all I saw was the last few minutes where Moyes is storming onto the pitch and giving it about the penalty, and then you see the penalty and it's like, well, it didn't really look like a penalty.
Yeah, and I think, and I often find with David Moyes teams, and I've seen this when they were trying to break into Champions League against the top sides, I always feel he never goes for it. They didn't go for it last night. Liverpool were really dominant, particularly in the second half. Fabinho, Henderson, Curtis Jones played really well. And again, Curtis Jones, a good example of a player that hasn't looked good enough for Liverpool, but when the team are playing well, it's very easy to look good enough for Liverpool when you're just one cog in that wheel. But yeah, David Moyes went, as you could see, bananas over the penalty decision. But it was only the last couple of minutes where they really West Ham had a bit of a go. And again, it will mean a lot to Klopp. They went 1-0 down, came back and won 2-1. So that will feel important to him, and the manner in which they done it, as I said, they could have done it by a lot more. They were very, very good, and as I said, a lot of Liverpool listeners, I'd imagine, and a lot of them mightn't have seen the game, but there was a lot of really good stuff from Liverpool last night.
Alright, so not done yet. Let's talk about the League of Ireland Premier Division. Bohs at the moment have a 5-point lead over Derry City. Shamrock Rovers are up to third now, which we kind of expected. They've turned it around in terms of results, and it looks like it could be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a bit of shape to the league when you look at in terms of position of people. There will obviously be a couple of teams, maybe like Dundalk, who could go either way for them. But you're starting to see sort of the shape in the league, as in the top four. You'd expect it probably not that way around. But the challenge now is this Bohs team capable of winning the league? I think that's the real big questions for people. And that will be tested, and I think this weekend they've got ties where you could say, yeah, they could go and win them ties. So
it's another back-to-back weekend.
Back-to-back weekend, which are usually important for teams trying to win the league. I keep saying to you here that I think the performance of Rovers will be a bit like Man City. They'll come like a steam train and probably win it. But for Bohs, it's a huge opportunity. Sometimes in a season, every so often it comes that way, like UCD away and Cork at home. I mean,
that's the bottom two.
And if they win both of them games, you're in 30 points after 13 games. That's an exceptional start. That's league winning form, and you would think that they've got the finances in place to strengthen the squad and back the manager. And with Pat Fenlon working in the background, I'm sure he's already working on different players that they'll spot most likely from outside of the league. So do I think they'll do it? No, but hey, stranger things have happened, and they've had an exceptional start. And you know, at that club there's been a huge sort of buzz off the pitch, but if you add what they're doing off the pitch and onto the pitch as well, it can be a really exciting time around Dalymount. And I think huge credit must go to Declan Devine, but also I think people and sometimes it gets lost in a bit of social media noise, but Keith Long has left them a lot of good young players coming through. A lot of people have made a lot of appearances, and to be fair, they've kicked on.
Are Bohs Arsenal in this scenario, or Shamrock Rovers Man City? I know you've been saying Rovers are coming, but can Bohs hold them out for a significant period of time at least to make it interesting?
Yeah, I suppose isn't that the challenge? I'm not sure. I honestly am unsure. I think they're probably. I feel like they're short of what needs to be done. But I'm mainly on defensive areas. But if they can strengthen that, as I said, get to the window with any sort of a lead, I think they'll have the finance to strengthen that. So the key for me is they haven't played well up in Drogheda, for example, the other day, and still won. And they've had a couple of results like that. And also the couple of games they've lost, they've went and backed them up with wins the following week. So they've showed a good, again, I hate that lazy word of mentality, but they have showed a good mentality. Young lads like whether it's McManus or Clark coming in and out of teams, swapping and changing them, and like we said pre-season, myself and Richie here, someone like Adam MacDonald has been huge for them, outstanding. But they've put pace in the team. Dylan Connolly, obviously a huge player for them. But there's something exciting happening down there. But I would say to you, they won't want me to use that analogy or for you to use it, but it does feel like there's a bit of Arsenal about them. But the difference is, when it comes to League of Ireland, is that this is a season they can definitely build on and be the ones to push Rovers if needs be.
You feel like there's enough youth in the Bohs squad that they could be around for a number of years. It's not like it's as we said earlier, a flash in the pan. This Bohs team should be around for a bit of time if they can keep the squad together.
Yeah, you would say by and large in League of Ireland nothing happens for years and years and years. It's because of the nature of it, but certainly there's a 2 or 3 year window with this team. And again, will some of the better players be picked off? They probably don't feel they need to sell as quickly or as they did, or do certain deals as they had to do. I mean, agents were looking for, release clauses of 14, 15, 60,000, and you would feel that they're in such a good position now that they can offer a decent wage that can counteract that.
On that, the transfer stuff, like Jack Byrne, staying put now after these MLS offers, but like as Stephen Bradley was saying, he now has the right to play down his contract and leave on a free. So, I mean, obviously Rovers will be delighted that he's staying put, but is it the right move for him, do you think?
Well, for him personally, I think the MLS suits him. I think he could do really, really well over there. So for him personally, it's not the right move. But that's like tough, Jack. Get over it. That we pay you good money here at Shamrock Rovers, and that's life. So it's brilliant show of sort of strength by Shamrock Rovers. Tells you, I mean, you've got to remember, you're talking about winning anywhere from $1 million. Once you enter the Champions League, you're almost guaranteed $1 million. Okay, so winning the league this year guaranteeing $1 million, but also the opportunity to earn another $5-6 million between Europe and getting to a group stage. So for taking it, and I believe the fee is hefty, but taking a fee now would weaken the chance of earning 4, 5, 6 million. So they've just said no. We want to remain in the Champions League next year. We want to win the league. We're keeping our best player. I'm sure they'll offer him a new contract between now and then. But again, windows and different things. This was a good time from whether the window was open in the USA, come end of the season, etc. But it's a real great show of strength from Shamrock Rovers to say, no, we're keeping our best player.
He's still young enough where he could have a great season, and then whenever his contract is run down, he could cash in himself at that stage, and it could be a win-win basically. Yeah,
you've got to remember. So for example, if the club was willing to pay, we'll just use 100,000 to Shamrock Rovers, they might be willing to give Jack, for argument's sake, 30,000 if that is a sign-on fee.
Yeah,
it's all equatable. People can work out the percentage and figures themselves. But yeah, so that's why it suits players. You look at the Matt Doherty deal where he's basically free agent, and great. Cha-ching, thanks very much.
Yeah.
And that's the economics of football, and letting players' contracts run out. We had it at Dundalk for years. We've lost people like, Richie Tell when he was, huge star at the time, Darryl Horgan, Andy Boyle, people like that went for, and it's the Challenge League of Ireland clubs have always had. They're starting to see a lot more what they're calling multi-year contracts now.
Yeah, and that's the risk, but they're taking those risks now from at least a more financially secure base than they would have been back in the day when shells were drawn with that word.
It's football economics.
Yeah,
let's call it spade. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Some you win, some you lose.
The refereeing, obviously, we don't want to talk about it every week.
No,
but we end up talking a little bit about it every week.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think it happened to be Duffer side this week that was live on TV, and there's a couple of interesting decisions. The penalty decision, I think, was a penalty decision, and then there was an incident with Keith Ward and Shane Farrell right in front of the referee where Keith Ward sort of pushes one player and the young player pushes him back around the head and he goes down on his head, and you're like, that's where Duffer's comments against the referee, you wonder, do some of them go against him, and is it time for him to go a little bit quiet now and maybe send out the assistant for a couple of interviews? But also just shows you the experience of older players. The Dundalk players played, the Shelbourne players, but then in fairness, Shelbourne won a penalty that was was dubious as well, but again it was a little bit of experience in terms of Evan Caffrey got in front of Dundalk's defender. But then the big learner for me on it was there was an incident where Paddy Barrett went for a ball with the Shepherd, the Dundalk keeper, ball in front of Shepherd, the keeper. It's debatable. I don't think he had the two hands on the ball, but Barrett's studs are up kind of high, and you can see why the referee gives the decision. But the big learner for me was, and where you've got to be fair to referees, Shepherd was lying on the ground holding his head and got treatment for a head injury. Studs, nothing was near his head.
Yeah.
So in all sports, you've got to give referees a hand, and you've got to call out people and say, you can't go down holding your head and get like lying on the ground nearly in a neck brace, and you're going. So it's so difficult for people refereeing, but I think on that game, I'm not sure. I think the referee could have could have given Farrell sort of, for want of a better word, an orange card instead of a red one, and to don't be. Now he did raise his hand and all that stuff, but Shelbourne got played a little bit, and that's the experience they've got to learn. And but it's a big learning point for us. We can slag off referees and go onto social media when they make a mistake, but when players are going to hold their head and get treatment, you've got to have a balance.
I think everybody is always obsessed with the thing that they're most interested in, and it turns out there's not a sport in the world where the referees aren't under constant scrutiny, and everybody goes, this is shite. We're the worst. These are the worst referees ever anywhere in our sport this particular week. And
well, you take the John Stones goal last night. I'm still convinced. I want to see a print out of that.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing where the ball gets kicked.
Yeah, I know that the boot sticks out on one angle.
Yeah,
but there's a different
kicked?
Angle where the boot isn't sticking out.
It felt offside.
Yeah.
Like it felt like the and I don't know. I mean,
and again, it's to your point. It's, you know, you hear stuff around. Was that a penalty in GAA? Wasn't not all this stuff. It's part of the game, but I'm not saying you shouldn't. Like, no coach is going to say, "Well, you feel contact, don't go down," because
no,
there is dark arts. But it's when players take them too far, they've got to be called out as well, and that's the balance.
Histrionics, that was always like part of our football culture. It wasn't the same as the continental European football culture, where it was like rolling round.
Yeah, but guess what? It is now.
Yeah, and which was best. I mean, you know, there was little aspects we could have taken from. And
there's some people who shout at me because and it's funny, the best teams always are accused of the dark arts. Like I was involved with a Dundalk team that people say we manage referees, like.
They
did.
Yeah, well, you had to. But the
Dubs do it.
If you look at the numbers so far this season, Vinny, so you have 14 red cards in the League of Ireland so far, eight of those straight red cards. Do you think there are diktats coming from on high from referees in terms of certain decisions or certain types of incidents that might lead to red cards, or is it just a coincidence?
I would say some of them red cards are just poor decisions by referees. Then I watched one game where there were 7 yellow cards and 1 red, and they were all justified. So it's how do you get the balance and all that? There's some bad decisions, but there's always been bad decisions. I just feel that, and I always say that on here, is we're comparing ourselves to the UK, where our yellow card count is over 5 on average per game. The UK is 3 something, but actually no referee has confirmed it to me or on or off the record. A referee's assessor, who I generally would see a lot of them now the way I view games. I just think we referee to a European standard, and what I mean by that is there's just different UEFA rules around Europa League games, and all the refs want to get to that level.
Yeah, and that's no harm in the long term.
The refereeing slightly different,
and maybe the teams will see the benefit of that when they get to European football and they've been conditioned to behave differently.
Do you ever see that yellow card? And it's most frustrating for me is, you know, that one where that's your third foul.
Yeah.
So what?
Big deal. Like, I've had 3 fouls in 60 minutes. Like, that's going to happen. They're the ones that annoy me. I feel they've gone out of the English game. I don't think they're going out, we'll call it European stroke Irish game.
Should persistent fouling not be...
Well, depend.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
people are going to cross each other. It's like...
Well, if you do, I guess it's intentional, right?
Yeah, but look, foul, like... I'm someone that used to make 10, 12 fouls a game when I played. It was a different game. You know, it was different.
It's a very GAA thing where you've done that foul 3 times, and I know you're doing it on purpose, and so I'm getting you for the third one, even though it's actually a minor foul. It's like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Consistency.
And that's the thing about refereeing. There's a lot of grey areas in terms of whether something is intentional or not intentional. A fella runs across you as you're running back.
Yeah.
Where did you want me to go? Type of stuff. And there's balance with all of them, you know.
Well, there was an interesting foul last night where De Bruyne. There's a foul on him, and he's like, it was 4 on 3, and they're like, oh, that's the third time. No, he was saying it was 4 on 3, which means it was a goal scoring opportunity. And you'd have to, like, well, actually, you are Kevin De Bruyne, and that is Haaland, so it probably is a goal scoring opportunity, and therefore it could have been a red instead of a yellow. But anyway,
but the biggest scourge in our game at the moment in world football, I would say, is time wasting. So people criticise the World Cup for 12, 13 minutes, and I was loving it. Free kicks are taking 2 and 4 minutes. There's a new trend in football now where players are getting down injured to allow tactical stuff. You're seeing it with goalkeepers, because people know if my goalkeeper goes down. I've seen it in League of Ireland games, and it's so obvious what's happening. And until someone deals with that And the problem is, how do you say whether someone's injured? Goalkeeper goes down, we have to stop the game.
One of the things that I think about football that has an advantage over, say, for example, particularly GAA, is that you could have a load of professional referees who are contracted centrally by the FAI, and this brings us nicely to the other issue of the week, which is the Horse and Greyhound Fund, and a story that has been running. In fairness to the Irish Independent, there has been an independent review carried out by a firm, and it's apparently 70 pages long. I hope it'll be published about how the distribution of that fund, which is topping up 1.4 billion in the last 20 years. And this is a story that we've covered since we launched in 2002. The Horse and Greyhound Fund get guaranteed in the statute books. It used to be 60 million and now it's gone up every year, and it's split 80-20 in favour of racing versus greyhound racing. And the money was supposed to come from betting tax, but ultimately we've had to contribute from the exchequer funding as well. The story came out, Eanna Reardon from the Labour Party raised it in the Dáil, and Leo Varadkar said, no, you can't pit these sports against each other. That's you're going about this all the wrong way. Colm used the word gaslighting about Varadkar's response to it, and it's interesting though, because they closed ranks. The Minister for Sport came out and said, this is a matter for the Department of Finance, and we've given loads of money to the FAI. Basically, shut up.
Well, interesting, because imagine being able to get a panel of referees who, as you said, are full-time, or there's so much good work on the FAI. For example, it's at the moment, and they need more funding for it, but at the moment, just one tiny example of there's a transition year. Every kid has now the option to go transition year in school. So the FAI run a brilliant course for the last number of years, a lot of really high profile players. So instead of having a transition year in school where you do home ec, or I know teachers was shouting saying, no, it's a bit more than that, right? And you learn how to sew or whatever. Does it in Dublin now, the elite players are going to do the transition year based as footballers. So they're doing all the strength, working as full-time footballers. Brilliant tool by the FAI. It's run out of, I think it's Finglas, it could be Cabra, but it's a brilliant tool. And it's so hard to get onto it now because all the elite players want to do it. And their parents are willing to say, if I had a son who's any good at football, this is a massive opportunity. So, but the problem is, I think there should be more of them around the country. Yeah. We need a bit more funding and help.
It should be a pilot programme that has worked, and now we roll it out. But
so all of them different ideas, and to come back to the main point, and I'm sure Dan will be in the studio at different stages. The problem, Dan's article is a brilliant Irish journalist who does it. The problem with Dan's article is, and the problem with the way we frame the argument is, that you get the answer that Leo Varadkar gives you yesterday, because you're pitching one sport against the other. And even though, and I'm not saying Dan, and he's very clear in his article that he's not trying to, and everyone will say, oh no, we shouldn't take away jobs away from horse racing, we shouldn't. The problem is, we're using it, we can use that as an example to say, look how good an industry can be if you actually fund it. So give us similar funding, even similar funding or half of that funding in football. But when you frame one against the other, then you get the sort of basically Varadkar said, because Aidan O'Riordan, I believe, is a big Pats fan, he basically said, just go away. And I imagine, and I know the FAI are in the background trying to develop communication lines with the government where they're showing them different things, and they probably aren't looking for this bit of noise at the moment that we are talking about. But we do need more funding. It's just by pitching this argument against it, I think actually mightn't help us, and I'm not saying that's right that it doesn't help us, because did you hear Varadkar's answer yesterday? He basically said what I felt he would say is, no, they do a great job, they do this, and he's factually wrong about, as you can see, about the Deloitte report is basically saying you can't count people that are working in betting shops as working in the industry. But we have to frame our argument as football people better, and that's why I do say things like, don't ask RTE to turn up and put them on top of a chipper van. We have to frame it right, and
it becomes partisan basically. You're splitting the two industries, and maybe, as you say, pitting them against each other, which isn't good for either.
Yeah, Jer's not. I don't think he's agreeing with me here.
I don't agree with you, right? Okay. And I'm also bleeding, so that's not a great. This isn't going to look great on telly. But I think that actually sometimes you just got to rattle the cages. I think that football deserves to stand on its own 2 feet, and I I buy the central thesis of the argument that if we're going to take money off the gambling firms, then some of that should go to football in a proportionate way, which will be 20% of the fund. Now, I get your point that you have to live in the real world, and the politics of this are going to be very interesting to see. What does Sinn Féin think about this? Because they're the ones who are going to be in charge of the Department of Finance inside the next couple of years.
Where Varadkar needs to wake up and read the room and smell the coffee is that you take Tallaght for argument's sake. And I don't know about you, I think I'm at an age where I love election counts, whether it's USA, England or Ireland, right? Sit there all night. And so many seats, so many elections are decided on a couple of hundred votes here and there, okay, across the world. There's 7,000 people in Tallaght now every week.
Leo Varadkar got in the last count the last time himself.
Right.
You know?
So if I was a politician in Tallaght, for argument's sake, I'd have a billboard on the side of the pitch of Shamrock Rovers Stadium.
Can I just say, I've been all around, all the Fianna Fáil politicians all have, in Dublin, all have. So I was in Castleknock and I've been in... where's the other one out there in the Navan Road? Where's Paddy Andrews? What's his club? Anyway, somebody remind me. Yeah. There's local Fianna Fáil politician right there, so they know the game.
Yeah.
But that's the GAA, and they're in bed and embedded with that. And I just feel like football could do a little bit of find your people within the organisation and go, why aren't we getting the same money? If this money's coming from gambling and lots of people are betting on football, then give us some of that money. I think that's fair.
Dundalk, 4,500, 3,500 people. The loud seats are swing either way. You can Galway, Cork. I'm saying, if one politician does it, like there is people like Charlie O'Connor who hasn't run as a TD recently. You always see him in Tallaght with his Rover stuff, and there's a bit of politics behind that. He fell out with the GAA lads because he was nice to the soccer lads, right? But the point I'm making is, we have to do it, and and I think the FAI are trying to do it. From what I'm hearing, and it's very quiet, they're trying to sort of come up the nice way.
I understand,
and you have to build trust within government, and people have to understand that. So again, by the way, Dan's article is a brilliant read, and it's fascinating, and it's obviously really good journalism. I'm just saying, I'm only trying to make the point is, we can't. It's like people come in and go, do you ever see those assholes who are in Dublin Airport every Saturday morning? What are you giving out about them for? Like, stop. Stop. Let's actually get them that they love Haaland or Ferguson and Hoban or Jack Byrne, whoever.
They're actually your people. You just haven't convinced them yet.
And so I don't know. I'm just saying, a huge amount of money. We can be be so good at this sport if we get funding and huge benefits. I've brought it up before. Think of the local guards and the FAI run a late night league in. I'm not going to mention the area. Crime will drop by 45% to 50% on the night they run the league, and they run it for 6 weeks windows. Sport and soccer can help society. Government need to see that, and they need to give us money to do it, not just at elite level, and then and help, like Soccer Sisters. Last Easter the FAI had coaches everywhere. Soccer Sisters throughout Easter was brilliant, and the knock-on effect for that is women's football in this country will improve, and different bits and pieces.
Participation levels go up, the cost of health goes down, more people stay in education longer. There's like mad knock-on impact, and I'm not saying it should just be soccer, but I do think we do need to revisit the horse and greyhound fund. The greyhound industry does not deserve the support that it gets from the Exchequer. It has not been able to stand on its own 2 feet. Its track record is not great when it comes to safety issues. They keep saying that they have fixed all those, and maybe we'll talk about that again some other time.
But is it okay to say football, man? That's their argument.
Yeah.
Let's have our own argument.
No, and you're right. You're right about getting your own house in order as well. It feels like one of the things stopping the house getting in order is that there's no political support, and the political support won't come unless. And
Varadkar's comments where yesterday I thought they were a little bit dismissive of soccer. Maybe Castleknock isn't a hotbed of soccer, and it's more GAA, but that's not good enough either to dismiss the argument that Aidan O'Riordan was making. League of Ireland, Irish Football, FEI deserve a bit more funding, and I hope the back channels are working.
Well, we'll come back to this for sure, because it's definitely really important. Vinny, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Very much.